and welcome to Dope Conversations. Today we have a graduate student and undergrad day. So we're gonna kind of lay back and understand from a student point of view, what is it to get these degrees and what do they provide for us in the future? So today, first up, I have Alden Fair on. He's gonna talk to us really about, do we look like a traditional student? Do we fit the mold that when you Google professional, is that what you see? And today we want to change your mind or give you something to think about when you think about a student, a professional. So thank you, Alden, for agreeing to being on the show today.
Of course. How are you doing today?
Good. So my very first question is, one, what inspired your first tattoo?
Okay, well, just for your information, my first tattoo was on my arm. It's an acronym for family. And I can say, to be honest, I've always been a fan of art, but I was never the person that could really draw. And also growing up, if you ask me, all these tattoos, it was normal to me. So I always found it fascinating. And this one is just mostly like anybody, they just inspired by their family. So I was inspired by mine, and I got this one.
How many tattoos do you have total?
I could say about over a dozen.
Okay, so
over a dozen.
Over a dozen. So we see one you have over your brow, and then
I got like
a couple of neck tattoos.
Yeah, I got about like 5 face tattoos.
So how has that played a role in job hunting? Because before we started and we're talking, you said that you're getting the question of, okay, what are you going to do when you graduate? You're about to graduate.
Yeah.
And so you're getting that question. So what's next?
Oh, well, me personally, it's actually funny that you asked that, because my brother asked me the same question the other day, and he just looked at me. He was like, you know, you've always been a real rebellious person to go against the grain and never really follow any rules of anything like that. So, but I mean, as far as like a career field, I would more so get into stuff like this and just being a personality and, you know, just inspire more people to get tattoos and don't be afraid about it, you know, because not everything has a story, but, you know, a lot of people have stories, so.
That's true. So what is your major?
My major is mass communications. I minor in marketing.
Okay, so again, with that creativity, and when you think about when you're out and about and shopping or just living your ordinary life, what are some of the reactions that you get?
It's actually kind of funny because if I was to go home, shout out to Maryland, D.C., by the way. But yeah, if I was to go home, people would probably look at me like I'm normal, or they'll probably look at me like you have less tattoos than everybody else, you know? But it's actually when I came out here, I got a little bit more mixed reactions because not a lot of people are fond of seeing things like that. But at the same time, moving home from out here, people aren't really fond of the lifestyle that we live up there. So it's really mixed, but you know, I get a lot of good reviews too.
It depends on the circles that you're moving in.
Yeah.
What impact do you think your visual presentation will have on your professional pursuits, your goals that you want to achieve?
I would think it would be a hassle for a little bit of the time until I find my way, honestly. And I would think it would just be about that, honestly.
Okay. So when you think about where you are now as far as your tattoos, do you want more?
Honestly, I do. I do want one more face tattoo to be, you know, a little crazy. But, you know, other than that, I was going to get the inside of my body done, get some of my back done. So probably my whole body one day, you know?
Okay. So I thank you for sharing your story. I think having the tattoos is a way to express yourself. I have tattoos myself. I think what you alluded to earlier, depending on the circles that you move in, it is more acceptable in some circles than not. And I do think you will find your way, and I do think that you'll be able to be as creative as you want with your body and with your body of work.
Yeah, of course.
So thank you for coming on.
Appreciate that.
All right, Dope Conversationists, we are going to go to break, and we will be back in just a moment with 2 graduate students that are going to join me to talk about the importance of graduate degrees in the Black community and how we can use these degrees to close the wealth gap, but also do some things so we can have the seat at the table to make some policy changes for our communities. Thank you. See you soon.
No margin for error.
Dare to forget that. Dare to have fun with it. Get weird with it. Dare to send those old STEM theories flying past the neighbor's house into outer space. Dare to program something internet-breaking, record-breaking. Dare to blow their minds. Dare to learn the difference between sedimentary and metamorphic rock. Go find those rocks. Dare to keep daring. Dare to STEM. Check out She Can STEM to get started.
Welcome back, and now I have two beautiful ladies that are students here in the graduate program at PVAMU. We have Alexis, she's pursuing her master's in architecture, and we have Chantal getting her PhD in juvenile justice. So if you need a lawyer, right here. So thank y'all for coming on. I know I reached out to you because I wanted you all to be able to be an example, but also share your experience in the graduate program. But first I want to know, why did you even pursue a graduate degree?
Well, for me, part of the reason why I have to pursue it is because I do want to get licensed. So in the School of Architecture at Prairie View, our undergraduate isn't accredited quite yet. So if we want to have our license, we have to get an accredited degree, which requires an extra year in our master's program.
Okay. And what about you, Chantal?
For me, it's more so about representation and actually trying to create a better life for myself and for those whose lives are connected to mine.
Okay.
So, yeah.
My story is similar to both of y'all's. I'm pursuing my doctorate because to be at the level I want to be in my career, I need that degree.
Right.
But I also want to use that degree to help my community and help get a seat at the table that I would not be able to get without that doctorate.
Yeah.
So what has been your experience thus far in your master's program?
So far it's been smooth sailing. I'm only taking my community development electives right now. So it's just essays, writings, discussions, and a lot of research. So I've been privy to a lot of information about the community of Houston and Hempstead, and just really understanding what it is to build for communities of color or communities that have been stripped of the privileges that you would see in white communities.
Oh, wow. Now, just that I know is important for our community.
Definitely.
Because without that research, without that knowledge, without that scholarship, how can we grow and change? So,
Exactly.
yes, that's very important.
Exactly.
So, how has the research that you've done thus far kind of shaped where you want to go as far as your career?
It's kind of been exciting. So we've been reading, one of my courses, we've been reading the colors. I forgot the book. I hate when I do that. But it was about gerrymandering.
Okay.
And basically the whole concept of how segregation has shaped the makeup of the U.S., whether it's in Waller, whether it's across the country in Pennsylvania, New York. There's so many communities across the country that have suffered and have had like a trickling and a lasting effect from segregation, and how that whole system kind of deprived the African American communities and other communities of color from the adequate education, from having the opportunities that were awarded to white communities, or that were isolated for white communities because of those ideas and those very narrow concepts that came along with it.
The whole time that you're talking, my social justice bling, bling,
Yep.
bling, bling, bling,
Yep.
because you can't talk about issues in our community without identifying ways that changes need to happen, but also ways that we can play a part in that, especially when you talk about your degree pursuits. So I ask you the same reason, like what made you want to get involved and what have you learned thus far in the program?
Right, so similar to Alexis, we do a lot of research, right? So most of the things that I look at, it has to do with minorities, and minorities would be African Americans and those from the Hispanic community. Now, majority of the literature shows that you have the minorities, or African Americans, so to speak, they make up 15% of the population. But when you look at the prison population, that's a different thing. It's disproportionate, right? So when we look at stuff like that, you want to think, okay, how can I change these youth so they do not end up in the system? So majority of my research has to do with what are the risk factors that they're exposed to, and how can we come up with protective factors, right? So doing the research that helps to identify programs that would work, and what are other programs that do not work, so that we can eliminate those and get to focus on more programs, funding for these youth, so that they can be involved. Because the reality is, if we do not start from this stage when they're young, then we will not need to be looking at them in the adult criminal justice system, right? Because it starts from their younger. So that is exactly what I try to look at more, and I try to compare, because I'm from the Caribbean, and we're Black too, so I try to compare Caribbean adolescents to American adolescents and just see the better way forward. So, yeah.
Wow. Again, you can hear the social justice, you can hear the movement through your work. And I think that's what, for me, this show is about, taking the scholarship that we're doing, but providing it to the communities that actually need the work, the research. And so what are your future plans with your research, and what are some of your goals to do? Where do you want to take your master's?
So first, I gotta get licensed. That's because if I can't get licensed, I feel like I won't be able to do as much as I want to do. But my end goal is to get enough experience in my career and fly back home. My family's originally from the Ivory Coast, so I want to be able to build for the communities over there, for the villages and the families that aren't really getting as much from their environment as they deserve. So that's where I want my end goal to be, but hopefully I'll get there soon.
You will. What about you, Chantal?
For me, I am looking at getting into education, so academia, to teach, as well as I want to do some community development work, because the reality is most of them in the communities, they don't have access to a lot of resources. So if we get into those communities and expose them to these things, then there will not be any need for them to want to look at any negative stimuli or stuff like that. A lot of them, they do not have parental support and just a positive group around them, and so that is why I think it's very important for us to get degrees, because it's like we're able to give back to the community, like you said, whether for mentorship or just the fact that they see someone looking like them, they would know that, okay, I can get there soon too,
Right.
So it's really for that. And like Alexis shared, I'm from Jamaica, so definitely I would like to go back home to give back to, because we have a lot of youth who are at risk. So to give back to, just talk to them, level with them. When they hear your story, they are better able to connect and better able to learn from it. So that's what I'm looking at doing.
Are you all first generation graduate students in your family?
First generation, I think I am. That means that it's
The
the first to
children?
graduate with. I think so far as I know, I think I'm the first to be getting a doctorate.
Wow.
That's what I know of.
That's
There could be
amazing.
people that I don't know of. But
Right. So look at the example you're already setting
Right.
through your family.
Right.
That's awesome. What about you?
I'll say I'm the second person because my older sister, she's working on her doctorates right now in
Nice.
trade and compliance. So
Wow.
kudos to her.
Yes.
But yeah, I think that first generation, I guess, I'm kind of confused on like how that level works. But yeah.
Well, no, I think what I'm hearing and what I love that I'm hearing is you both have chosen paths that will allow you to do some community activism through your degrees.
Yeah.
Even your sister, you said trade and
Compliance, yes. So she does import-export type of ordeals, and right now she's working with Mazda, so she's been working a lot with the
Nice.
transportation
Yeah.
and figuring out that sort of information, yeah.
Now that's a table we need to see that.
Look,
That's beautiful.
yeah, definitely.
That's dope.
I definitely look up to her, that's very dope. I definitely
Yes. So do you think, or how do you feel that your degrees are going to position you in a way to help your communities? Do you think, hey, I could have done this work without this degree?
No.
Nah.
Why do you think that?
Because the reality is we have to be qualified to even get to the table. Even if we probably know something, just think about the racial issues that we face today wherever you go. So if you are just going with just that you just want to get to, you're not going to get in. So you have to have the necessary qualifications. So once you have the degree, you're able to sit at the table, and even if somebody's trying to side eye you because of your complexion or because of your story, there's no way they can get you out or from the table because you have what it takes to be there.
And the person that popped in my head just now when you were talking, Supreme Court Justice Jackson.
Yes, exactly.
Yep.
The way they drilled her,
Exactly.
and she had an abundance of qualifications, of
Yet.
which some of them didn't even
Didn't have.
And she still had to prove she was ready, prepared, and qualified.
Yeah.
So I do agree with you, Chantel, that having these degrees put us in a position to gain the research, gain the knowledge, but it's almost like that stamp that you have to get into that door. Like, okay, you want to sit at this table, do you have this?
Right,
Let me see your
exactly.
CV.
Exactly.
And so I think it is important if we want to make policy changes, especially like your sister in the automobile industry, we have to be qualified to sit at these tables. And to get qualified, you have to
Have to
get,
go to school.
you got to go to school.
Educated.
You got to get educated.
Qualified, experience.
Right. So with getting your master's, do you foresee you getting an additional degree after that, going for your doctorate?
Currently, I don't think so. If I do go for it, I think it'll be more of understanding the built environment on a conceptual level. So what does it mean to connect and bring in specific materials in a specific environment? So it'll be more of like research and understanding like a theory on a whole nother level.
Right.
But I want to have more experience before I even get to that type of thinking. So.
And both of you all mentioned community development. So in your program, you're taking community development courses?
I am not taking community development courses, but I do policy courses.
Okay.
So that kind of extend to what happens in communities a little bit.
Right. And
Yeah.
so you're learning how to help develop these communities
Yes.
that are already existing that may be
And what
missing
works.
resources,
Right.
which is very valuable.
Valuable, yes.
We're going to pray that you succeed in getting your doctorate so that you can go do the work.
Amen. Amen.
Amen. So when you think about what would be your number one priority in community development, if you said, okay, this is the thing that I'm most passionate about, where do you see the greatest need for your experience, your knowledge?
I would want to focus more on the education aspect because like she said, we have to educate our community in order for them to want to go out and search for different opportunities. You can't find or you can't look for something that you don't know is out there, right? So once we get into the education aspects of our communities and hit home where everything is young, fresh, where children are still soaking everything like sponges, expose them to knowledge, and then they'll begin to find different avenues to strengthen their communities, to make it more sustainable, to bring in more jobs or even create jobs on their own that would like at least employ their elders, you know, like some small. I feel like it starts out that small where it'll end up flourishing and growing into something much larger, into a community that's much stronger.
Oh, that's awesome. So same question for you. What need do you see that where you can fill that void? You can go in and say, hey, I have this research, I have this experience, let me improve on this topic.
This topic, okay. So I would say, as it relates to mentorship or family structure, that sort of thing. And it also ties with education, because the reality is some of the things that these youth know today, I might not know it. And so because you give them the space, you're listening, you're exposing them to resources, they're able to come up with new ideas to even fill that very gap that I might have gone to help fill, right? So it's really listening and mentorship and trying to help in terms of family structure, because research does show you a lot as it relates to socioeconomic structures and just the things that they correlate with, so you can just try to come up with ideas to try to help them in that aspect. So that's what I am looking at.
That's good. Just for clarity, can you explain what possibilities or what opportunities will you be qualified for now that you'll get when you obtain your master's in architecture?
I think I'll be more qualified. I have to start in the beginning, so like junior architect, going into like a design type of field first, and then the more experience that I have in the field, like after I met that 3-year mark, and then once I get licensed, those opportunities will open up to be more of like project manager or design director, and yeah, those type of positions for, you know.
So are you talking about as far as architecture of maybe residential areas or more commercial areas?
There's a lot of avenues. Where I want to start out my career is in the medical industry first. So designing hospital spaces, rooms, understanding the safety and regulations that go along with hospitals. And then once I get out of school, I think any avenue that I choose to go to after I'm done, I think would really just, it's up to my choice. I'll be qualified for any of the positions, but it'll just be more of like my decision to start with hospitals and
but you're creating
the medical.
those choices
Exactly.
now. You're creating those opportunities where you may have been limited with just your bachelor's. Now you're about to create a gamut of opportunities.
Exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's good. So for you, what exactly does a doctorate in juvenile justice lead you to? What does it provide opportunities to?
So there is the most popular one is to become an assistant professor, which we start out, you know, to going to full professor. And then there's also consultancy work. There's also research. We can work with NGOs to, as it relates to policy development.
What's the NGO?
Non-government organization.
Okay.
Yeah, so to work in terms of bringing about policies, because most of them, they pretty much work with communities to try to help to build them up. So those are some of the avenues. Research. Some people probably go back to law school, but I'm finished with school after this. You know.
That's it?
Yes, that's it.
Well, you got your doctorate. I think we'll let you rest.
Yes. Yes. So pretty much that's what I'm looking at.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, ladies. We're going to go to commercial break and we'll come back and wrap up. But please come back. We want to finish out with talking to Chantal and Alexis and pick their brain for just a little bit more.
What do an aerospace engineer, cancer immunologist, and bat scientist all have in common? We all have cool jobs in STEM fields. Whether it's building robots or learning to code, girls everywhere are finding their passion for science, technology, engineering, and math through positive role models and mentors. So dare to dive in, get connected, and explore. You never know what your future may hold. Learn more about these and even more cool jobs at shecanstem.com.
Welcome back. And now in this time in the show, I wanted to ask you, What were some of the obstacles that you faced during graduate school? Just one that maybe really like, okay, I don't know if this is for me, but how did you overcome that so you could stay the course and finish?
There's been this, I'll say this theory or this concept that's been floating around social media, and like everyone has been talking about the Impostor Syndrome.
Yeah, we talked about that in our last show.
Yeah, so that hit me a little bit at the beginning of the semester, because I felt that trying to strive for a degree like this big, maybe it wasn't for me. Maybe the amount of work, maybe the brain capacity that was required for me to like be diligent and stay structured and maintain consistency when it comes to like researching, reading, and going in on my assignments. For a small period of time, I felt that it wasn't for me, but then I was reminded, once again, by my older sister. She's one of like my biggest like visionaries.
That's good.
Was that it's only for me if I want it to be. Like I have to want it for myself, and if I really envision myself being licensed, going to the places that I want to go to, going back home and knowing and going into those offices and saying, I know what I'm talking about. I have this experience, I have this background, I know how to attack these issues head on with the numbers, with the research, with the data, then it'll be in my hands, it'll fall for me. Yeah. So that's where like my vision had to zone in and be like, okay, let's get out of this framework because I belong in places where I am meant to be. Right. So I kind of just been working and keeping my head down and saying like, okay, I'm a focus. I'm a focus. I'm gonna cry a little bit. I'm gonna be mad a little bit, but I'm gonna go back to it and I'm gonna keep attacking it because no one else is gonna do it for me but me. So
good.
Yeah,
that's amazing. So this sounds like, because you shouted out your sister a couple of times, when you go home, one, you need to show her this show.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely gonna share it and be like, look, I shouted you out.
Yeah. And second, you need to tell her thank you, because I think we all need that social support. When you're tackling on journeys like this, you can't do it by yourself.
Amen.
So what about you? What's one of the biggest obstacles that you faced, and how did you overcome it?
For me, the imposter syndrome too. I mean, I faced that the very first semester when I got here, and I was like, because then, you know, imagine traveling from home to come to somewhere that you don't know anybody. You're about to start a new phase in your life, and you don't know anybody, and then you just feel, and then COVID hit, and then you're like, oh my gosh, what to do? So it was really imposter syndrome, but then I had to remember my why. Right? Because I was really pursuing this PhD because I wanted to. So nobody forced me or told me to do it, but I want to because it's inclusivity, it's that, you know, it fosters diversity and representation. And like I said, it's really because of those lives that are connected to mine. For example, my siblings, you know, I want to be an example, just like her sister is an example to her, because I'm the eldest. So that's what I'm trying to do. You know, so I have to remember that to keep going. So that's what I do to try to overcome. And then your friendship group, you have people who believe in you. So there have been times when I was just like, oh my gosh, I don't belong here. What am I doing? And they're like, come on, you're small, but you don't show up small and stuff like that. And you know, when I hear things like that, it really pushes me and just helps me to stay focused.
Oh,
that's amazing.
That's so beautiful. See, and this is why I love mentoring. Both of these young ladies are going after something only 2% of the people in the world have a doctorate degree. This is big. This is not a small thing. When we talk about getting graduate degrees to make yourself qualified to be in a certain space, it's not just for you. It's for whom you belong, but it's also a point where you have to remember the why. And the why is often the catalyst to keep you going, but definitely surrounding yourself by positive people and people with like minds and concepts is a necessary tool. But social support is necessary through all of our journeys in life, and this is no different. So I encourage everyone that has some goal or dream to pursue that, but use education to help build that and to make it even more exponential, make it even more profound in your community. So tune in next week And we will be closing out our season, and we hope to see you at the same time next Thursday at 4 o'clock. Vikita out.